For the African Union member states to take bold and decisive steps in implementing homegrown solutions to our health security challenges. As regards vaccines, we must build a holistic ecosystem incorporating the entire value chain all the way from research and development to clinical trials.
President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, says that Africa must liberate themselves from the donor funds. He made this statement when he was addressing the African Union Summit. President Ruto, who was also designated the African Union Championship for Institution Reform, he took over from President Kagame of Rwanda. Now, the Assembly of the African Union Heads of State and Government bestowed on President Ruto the responsibility of providing political leadership and vision and completing the comprehensive institutional reform initiative that started in 2016. The reforms involved reforming the structure, functioning and focus of the African Union Commission, AU organs and specialized agents so that they become more effective and efficient in managing the programs of the African Union.
Africa must therefore begin to liberate itself from the dependency on donor-funded mechanisms, and AU member states must significantly accelerate efforts to develop a self-reliant, self-sufficient vaccine production sector for sustainable access.
Speaking at the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ruto said the summit would then invite friend countries from other parts of the world, corporations and philanthropists to give their views. Ruto, who is now the African Union's champion for institutional reform, said the summit would be held on an annual basis in the continent.
In turn, it is necessary for African leaders to mobilize adequate investment in local vaccine industries, which entail the removal of drawbacks, including intellectual property obstacles to manufacturing, trade barriers, and supply chain constraints. It has come for the African Union member states to take bold and decisive steps in implementing homegrown solutions to our health security challenges. As regards vaccines, we must build a holistic ecosystem incorporating the entire value chain all the way from research and development to clinical trials, local production, as well as efficient distribution and delivery. Even as we speak to collaborate and as we seek to collaborate and forge partnership to develop our vaccine production capacity, we must not lose sight of our fundamental strategic goal, which is the achievement of...
Pause from there. He calls Africans to unite and work on their problems. I remember recently in 2020 where the COVID pandemic hit the world. Africa tried its level best to say that they create or they produce their own vaccine for COVID-19, but you know what happened. African vaccine was banned from the market. The reason was that it wasn't efficient, so we had to use the vaccines from the whites. So if they unite, can this be possible for the scientists in Africa to come together and make vaccine and start producing vaccine for African, not to depend on the whites?
Which is the achievement of vaccine and healthcare sovereignty. Africa must therefore begin to liberate itself from the dependency on donor-funded mechanisms, and AU member states must significantly accelerate efforts to develop a self-reliant, self-sufficient vaccine production sector for sustainable access to routine as well as outbreak vaccinations. In turn, it is necessary for African leaders to mobilize adequate investment in local vaccine industries, which entail the removal of drawbacks, including intellectual property obstacles to manufacturing, trade barriers, and supply chain constraints. We must also promote equitable vaccine distribution globally based on the need to save lives, not greed for profit.
He calls Africa not to depend on donors. But one of the things that have barred African from developing, one, and it is so crucial, is borrowing, massive borrowing in Africa. This has kept us in slavery. This has made African very poor. We depend on borrowing. Take an example with Uganda. Uganda's budget is facilitated by borrowing. It can be good because we need development, like infrastructure development. But again, we become slaves for others. That means we work to pay others, which can hinder our development. So if African can wake up and say enough we can depend on our small thing we have, because Africa is gifted. Africa is rich. Africa has a lot of mineral resources, has a lot of riches, but you know why? We don't know how to utilize them. And one of another major thing that is leaving Africa behind is our leaders who are greedy, who are so greedy. You find a country governed by a family. President, first lady is in the government, the son is in the government, cousins are in the government. So all the resources, all the development depends on them. So first they have to exploit their own people for their gains. If we can create a system where you should not go beyond a certain term in office, you serve and leave others also to serve the country, this would make the country develop. But presidents are so greedy, they do not want to leave power. On top of that, they export the citizens. This is so bad to the citizens and to Africa. We've seen countries that develop have a good system where there is change of government at a certain period of time. But here in Africa, when someone gets power, he feels everything depends on him. He does not want to leave. Others come to power by fighting. So if they grow power, they do not want to leave. So Africa must wake up. This is the call from His Excellency Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya. Thank you so much for watching. Kindly subscribe, like, and share, and give me your thoughts.